Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar about preparing for 2024 and beyond. Appreciate you taking the time to join us. We know that everybody's busy. It's getting to the back end of the year and all hands on deck. So welcome to today's session. So the overview of today's session will be, thanks, Matt, can we move on? We are going to have an automotive industry update from Stavros Yallouridis, the CEO of MTA New South Wales, sitting on my left. And we've got a guest speaker today as well, Michelle Harrison from icare, who's going to give us an update on workers' compensation scheme and the automotive industry performance in that space. And then I'll be finishing off the session around work health and safety and how we can create a safer workplace to protect us into that future. We'll end off the session with hopefully with questions if we've got time. Please use, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little blue icon with a question mark. Click on that and you can type a question. So as we work through the session, if something prompts you to ask a question, please type it in. When we get to the end of our deliveries, we will then circle back and address some of those questions, and depending on how much time, we'll look at what we've got. Also in the room today, just to introduce, is Damien Franich, who is part of my team. Damien is the Growth and Engagement Manager for Motor Trades Care. And we also have Matt Chan, who will be supporting us in the technical space today. So on that note, I'll just hand over to Stavros. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I mean, this is a really good opportunity for us to engage with the industry and, of course, engage with icare themselves and for them to provide you important and relevant information. I'll start the presentation by just giving you a bit of an update of what MTA are all about at a high level. I know some of you are members and there's a lot of people online today that aren't members but are from industry. So MTA group of companies, we do have a couple of entities that we work. One of them obviously is the Motor Trades Care, and hence why we're here today. So we have approximately just over 3,000 members, businesses that are members of the association that represent around 25,000 employees across the state. And our membership has grown on year of around 6% thus far. We have also are the largest training organisation, the RTO, and we have had an increase in training commencements by 25% this year, which brings us up to 2,400, roughly 2,400 students that we're actually training across New South Wales in the automotive space. We have continuously had success in our operations, and with 6 years of profitability, that sort of money goes back into the business and to support members in the industry. And we're currently sitting on around about 103 staff. Thanks, Matt. So we are a leading industry association. We are non-for-profit, so it's a members association. MTC, as we mentioned before, experts in the work health and safety area. So we are providing a lot of members a lot of information about how you mitigate risk in the workplace and return to work as well. We are the largest private RTO in the automotive space in Australia. And as I mentioned earlier, we've recently acquired MyTradeStart, which is another RTO, which is based here in Sydney, in Auburn, with a training facility. And we are currently in the process of developing and building our new MTA Training Academy, which is in Western Sydney. That's just a draft image on the right there of how it will look. Hopefully we'll have that launched by third term of 2024. Thanks, Matt. So I'll give you a bit of a business update. What are our members and what is the business owners telling us thus far for 23? The confidence has been somewhat improved between June and October, and that's obviously because there's been no interest rates, and there's some sort of stability from the feedback we've received. However, we're not sure of how we will trend after the 25 basis points that was announced on Tuesday, which will definitely cause some disruption and some, further concerns. So the confidence, there's 31% of businesses indicate they were confident about their business and their prospects. There are 83% of the businesses are concerned about the cost of conducting business as we move forward. 52% of businesses want to expand with hiring additional staff, and we all know the problems that we're confronted with skill shortage and trying to find qualified and staff to enter into our trade. This is not just in the automotive industry, but across all industries today in Australia. 36% of the businesses want to expand and plans to grow. Profitability, 14% is expected to increase their profitability compared to 38% is expected to decline. Regarding revenue, 20% are expecting to increase their revenue compared to 30% expecting a decline. So there is uncertainty in the marketplace, and I think the fact that the basis points in the RBA increasing interest rates is increasing the cost of conducting business today. The local economy, well, 17% of the businesses have indicated they were confident about the local economy, and I'm talking about the New South Wales state here in particular. Thanks, Matt. For those who are not so engaged in the vehicle sales on a day-to-day, I think it's important that everyone has a bit of an understanding of what are we talking about when we talk about electric vehicles and delivery of vehicles. So, look, at the moment, 2023 year-to-date October, we're heading for a record year in terms of car sales. So the cars delivered up until the end of October were just over 1 million units. As you can see there, 963 are passenger vehicles, 42,000 or 43,000 in the heavy vehicle, which is over the 4.5 tonne. And of the 963 units, passenger cars, 71,800 were electric vehicles. As you can see, there's a 200% increase on 2022, and 79,000 vehicles delivered were hybrid across Australia. Regarding New South Wales represents around about 33% of the total market. So 311,000 units were delivered at the end of October, which is up 10% versus the previous year. And 298,000 were passenger cars. 12,000 were the heavy vehicles, again over 4.5 tonne. And in New South Wales, we have delivered so far 24,000 electric vehicles, and that's up 190% versus 2022, and 27,000 vehicles were delivered. I say delivered because we know currently that the majority of the businesses have seen a slowdown in order intake, in showroom traffic, and these vehicles are a lot that have been prior ordered in previous years, and delivery has taken place. So the delivery on one aspect is one thing, but the actual input of sales is another thing. So we might see eventually, as we get through the delivery phase and receiving vehicles, we might see a slowdown in the next year. So on that note, I thank everybody. If you have any questions, just as we said earlier, just make a note of it. And I'd like to hand over to Michelle, who's our special guest speaker today from icare, and to bring you up to speed with what's happening in the industry. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Stavros, and thank you, Trevor, for welcoming me as part of this event today. I think it's a very interesting topic for the automotive industry to go through today. So next slide, Matt. My name is Michelle Harrison, and for those of you who are unfamiliar, I work for icare. icare is the largest workers' compensation insurer within New South Wales, the New South Wales scheme. We insure over 350,000 policies and over 60,000 claims year on year, noting that over 11,000 of those policies do fall within the automotive industry, with roughly 2,750 claims year on year within the automotive space as well. Today, I'm going to be walking you through some high-level automotive industry data, and then I'll be walking you through a premium update, and then I'll walk you through, I guess, some very tactical solutions that you can undertake today or tomorrow within your business to hopefully reduce some organisational costs, which may reduce your workers' compensation premium as well. So this slide here provides you with a high-level industry profile, some data at a high level. Now, the automotive industry focuses on 17 sub-industries. So those sub-industries are everything from car retailing to smash repairing, to automotive repair, to tyre retailing, to rubber tyre manufacturing. I will walk you through all the different sub-industries in a further slide, but just to go through this slide, over the last 5 financial years, there have been approximately 13,500 claims reported within the automotive industry, and the gross cost of all those injuries have been just under $500 million. The average gross incurred cost per injury is $35,500, with an average of 30 days off work. So I guess if the audience just wants to take a moment to reflect, I guess, on some of those numbers, and the cost that having a single employee that has an average of 30 days off work and the impact that could potentially have on your business. Even if you can reduce that by a couple of days by providing suitable duties, it could make a huge impact on productivity costs within your organisation. The bottom 2 graphs in this slide look at the frequency of injuries over a 5-year period. So over the last 5 years, year on year, your injuries have roughly been from 2,750 to 3,000 claims year on year. And 70% of those claims year on year have attributed a time loss component. So again, looking at the suitable duties component as much as possible and getting those workers back to work is ideal. Exactly. So this slide looks at your policy and claims profile. So it is broken down into 3 customer segments. It looks at your small policyholders. So we determine small policyholders to have an average performance premium of under $30,000. Then you've got your experience rated customers, which are customers that have a premium over $30,000 average performance premium. And then you've got your loss prevention and recovery customers, who are the largest businesses within the scheme and have a premium of over 500,000 APP. So if you look at that on the pie graphs there, you can see that a majority of the automotive profile is small policyholders, but the majority of claims that are being reported in the industry are coming from your experience rated and loss prevention and recovery customers, who really should have some of the resources and ability to be able to improve injury prevention and return to work. So as mentioned previously, these are the 17 different workers' insurance classification rates that we determine to make up the automotive industry. I know that there's a number of customers and policyholders in the audience that fall within car retailing, smash repairing, automotive repair and so forth. So next slide, please. So this slide here looks at your top 7 sub-injuries in terms of claims being reported within the financial year, the 22 financial year. So if you look at automotive repair and services not also classified in car retailing, year on year, in the 22 year, car retailing has reported 500 claims, automotive repair and services is 600 claims, whereas you can see that the policies for automotive repair is much higher than car retailing. So you've got 5,000 of the 5,000 policies in automotive repair and just over 600 in car retailing in there. Next slide. Next slide. So what is causing some of these injuries to occur within your businesses? So this slide here looks at the top 3 causes of physical injury by gross incurred cost. So number 1 in there is slips, trips and falls that are occurring amongst the businesses. So these are hazards where employees are potentially falling over that could, through simple measures, eliminate those injuries from occurring. The average gross incurred cost is over 46,000 vehicle incidents. So this is costing on average 45,500, 45K on average. So vehicle incidents are, accidents that are occurring in a vehicle. They could be incidents that are occurring from a moving vehicle, incidents that are occurring within your workshops involving vehicles. Then the number 3 there is body stressing. So these are your repetitive type claims that are occurring amongst your business, and the average gross incurred cost is 36K average gross incurred cost. So just at the slide below, just wanted to note there that whilst a majority of the claims within the automotive industry are occurring with your physical injuries of 13,000 over the 5-year period, I just wanted to highlight that psychological claims, whilst it might only seem a small amount of claims, being 500 over the 5-year period, it is costing on average 95,000 in average gross incurred cost for each individual one of those claims. And it is costing close to $50 million over the 5-year period for those claims there. So this slide here looks at the body part that is occurring, I guess the body part with the nature of injury. So upper limb injuries are the highest amount of claims that are occurring within the automotive industry space, with 5,700 claims. The average gross cost incurred for an upper limb injury is roughly $25,000. But just noting again there that psychological injuries, 500 claims, but they're 3.5 times the cost of an upper limb injury. Yeah, so just to give a premium update, some of you might be aware that at the end of May this year, we did announce to the market that icare would be increasing premiums for the next 3 years of an average of 8% for the next 3 years. So just wanted to note that as it's an average, some businesses could be above 8%, some businesses could be below. For the automotive industry in particular, there were 11 sub-industries that did receive more than an 8% increase, with 6 of those industries with less than an 8% increase. So the way we determine the way the workers' insurance classification rates are determined is the actuaries year on year will look at the amount of claims reported in the last 5-year period and the claims costs of those claims in the last 5 years versus the premium that has been collected for those individual businesses. So as a collective, as the automotive industry, there is an opportunity to reduce those rates that are looked at year on year if we can reduce the amount of claims that are occurring amongst the industry. So individually as businesses, you do have the opportunity to reduce the rates year on year if you can individually reduce that collective spend. Slide, please. So I just wanted to walk you through, I guess, some tactical things that you could do today to help reduce your premium. So we introduced in this financial year the Safe Employer Reward, which is a performance-based reward designed to reward those employees that have safe work practices and are certainly getting those employees back to work. So there is 3 criteria that must be adhered to get the Safe Employer Reward. So for both small employers and experienced rated employers, you need to have at least 3 years of policy history. And you have to have no catastrophic claims reported, and you need to have if you're a small employer, you need to have no weekly benefits claims in the 3 years prior. But just wanted to note that if you have a medical only claim and you've gotten that person back to work and provided suitable duties, you'd still be entitled to the discount, and the discount is 7.5% off your average performance premium. Now, if you're an experienced rated customer, it is a sliding scale depending on how you perform. If you're performing better than the average, better than the 100%, then it's a sliding scale with the discount that you will receive in that space, depending on where you perform. So really, it is about trying to provide suitable duties as quickly as possible and getting those employees back to work. So again, return to work, incentive discounts, focusing on providing suitable duties and getting those employees back to work within your organisation as soon as possible. So this is a discount for experience rated customers, whereby if you get your employee back to work within a certain time period, which is indicated in the table there, so under 13 weeks, you'll get a 15% discount, 13 to 26, 10%, 26 to 52, 5%. A worker needs to be at full capacity for 3 months, consecutive months with no further wage loss entitlements. So they can still be a medical only claim after having time loss, and you will still get this discount as long as they are at full capacity and no further wage loss entitlement. Just wanted to note there as well that those percentage discounts are a reduction from the CPR cost on the individual cost of claim, not a direct percentage reduction on your premium. So claims reporting and excess. So over 40% of the claims within the automotive industry are reported greater than 5 days after it has been known in the workplace that the incident has occurred. So with these claims, the claims that are reported outside of 5 days, they're taking on average 45 days to return to work and 50,000 in gross incurred cost. That is double. The data tells us that is double if you report a claim within 5 days. So it's really important when a claim is being notified, you go through the correct channels, get the appropriate treatment, and get the claim notified to the insurer, because the data really does show us and highlight that just that simple change in the processes in your business, you could be saving crucial dollars on your spend. And just noting that it is an obligation of employers to report the injury within 48 hours. There is some leniency, and you have up to 5 calendar days to report that injury. If the injury is not reported within those 5 calendar days, then the insurer will charge you what is known as a claims excess. Now, that excess will be the first week of wages for your employee. So if you have an employee earning $1,500 a week, then you'll get charged a bill of $1,500, and that's a direct cost on your claims cost. So that's a simple way that you could save some money within your organisation. So just some key takeaway points before I hand over to Trevor to go through his presentation. Again, just reporting of claims within 48 hours, it's so critical to get those injuries and to get persons that are injured within your workplace the right treatment and right support straight away. Social connections is a big one. Just making sure you're in contact with your workers could make a simple difference, and it really could be the difference between somebody getting back to work and not getting back to work if they're getting those constant phone calls and they feel like they're being looked after and there's concern for that injured employee. Providing suitable duties is a big one as well, which I've discussed a couple of times in a couple of the slides. If you can provide minimal suitable duties, even if it's just, a couple of hours every day, it's better than that person sitting at home all day, and you're much better off doing a gradual return to work. And then there's injury prevention and return to work and early intervention, which I know Trevor will elaborate further in his sort of slides. And then the final point is get some advice or support. Our partners at MTC do a great job in some of the initiatives that they've put together. If you haven't checked out their website already, please do. Some great resources, initiatives and tools that could certainly help reduce some of your organisational spend and make you more efficient within your workplaces. So I'll hand it over to Trevor. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Matt. You can just move straight into the next slide. Thank you. So just from a current situation and reality perspective, the environment that we operate in day to day, some key call-outs on the page there. I think we can recognise that for most, safety is important. However, because incidents and injuries are reasonably infrequent, it's not always at the forefront of what we do every day, and generally it becomes a priority when something goes wrong. So if there's an accident that involves the regulator or somebody is injured and has to be treated in the hospital or has a significant long-term claim. Doing more to emphasize not only the importance of safety, but also the priority placed on safety in a business is essential to success in that space. We also know that the commercial landscape, it's complex. There's many laws, not just in the safety space, and regulations, codes of practice, and other reference standards that set out our duties, responsibilities, obligations, and expectations. This can be very, very overwhelming and complicated to understand, and you can find it challenging to hit the sweet spot of what's reasonably practical and operationally feasible. But in reality, if you get this right, it does add value to your business for many, many reasons. Similarly, in the workers' compensation environment, there's also quite a complex legislative framework that drives the process, which can be hard to navigate. A compensable injury creates a number of challenges, not just for the injured worker and the people close to them, but for the business as well. The best approach is always to not have an injury in the first instance, but secondly, if an injury does occur, managing that injury from the earliest stage as possible, which we call early intervention, generally delivers the best possible outcome and return to work results in that space. From a outcomes perspective, there's nothing good for anybody when there's poor safety outcomes. Serious injuries change people's lives, and it is not good for those individuals or your business. what we need to focus on here is that a happy, healthy, and engaged workforce delivers great results for them and for your business. The thing is that there's always a return on injury prevention investment. It might not be overtly tangible in terms of cashback or any significant changes in that regard, but it is generally more recognised in better productivity or higher productivity, more engaged and trusted workforce, operational efficiencies, and overall better bottom line. There's absolutely no return on workplace injuries. So moving on to just looking at the basics. So how do we get involved? How do we make things reduce the risk, make things safer for people? Individually, if we can do a little bit more than what we're doing in the proactive space, we can collectively reduce the number of claims and injuries that we have and the impact on people. And we also then reduce the underpinning costs associated with workers' compensation claims, which then transition into increases in premium rates. So what we try to do, as I said, there's a lot to this. You can't achieve a sustainable approach just from one or two things in your organisation. So you have to have a bit more of a holistic approach to this. But I suppose the starting point is, if you're a business owner or considered an officer, so that's somebody that influences decisions or changes in the business, you need to know what your responsibilities are. All right. If you rely on someone to support you in that space, or you've given that responsibility to somebody else in your organisation, they also need to understand what those responsibilities are. So you need to take reasonable steps to gain that knowledge and awareness of your duties and obligations and expectations under the various legislative frameworks. So next is we look at consultation, communication, and training. That's really, really central. It is actually part of your primary duty of care under the legislation. And the thing is, you've got to have it in place. You need to make sure it's in place. Take advantage of that. If you do it well, it does create value for your business. We then move on to hazard awareness and risk control. Simply, if you aren't aware of the hazards or you aren't informed of issues or hazards, you can't do anything about it. So if we reflect back on some of those statistics that Michelle covered, if you look at slip, trips and falls, vehicle accidents, and then the musculoskeletal or body stressing injuries, body stressing is inherent risk in most automotive businesses. So there's a lot of manual handling, we're lifting, pushing, pulling, moving things around. So while we want to do as much as we can to reduce the frequency of those mechanisms of injury, they are going to happen. We're realistic about that. So we can't completely eliminate the risk of those types of injuries. But in terms of slips, trips and falls and vehicle accidents, there is an opportunity there to shift that dial in that space, because those types of mechanisms can be eliminated and the injuries avoided. So it's really important to understand what's going on in your workshops, making sure that people report any issues and that they are dealt with straight away in the best possible way. Providing safe systems of work, once again, also a really basic criteria around workplace safety. Things like safe work instructions, providing safe plant and machinery, and the right tools for safety and protective equipment. And if you combine that with your consultation and communication and training mechanisms, that'll give you a really, really strong foundation to build on. And then lastly, if we look at monitoring your workplace, that's also quite an important part. Supervision, adequate supervision is also a primary duty. And there's different ways to provide support in the workplace for your workers. But make sure you have routines in place where you do regular workplace inspections and check housekeeping standards, and remove those hazards that are causing those trips, slips and falls or incidents with vehicles or other mobile plants. You can also engage in frequent conversations and using, for example, toolbox talks to share information and communicate about safety to your workforce. So we know that for most businesses, there isn't a lot of internal capability around work health and safety, because it's not always viable for organisations of different sizes to have a dedicated resource that just focuses on safety. So that is the reality of the world that we have to live in. So you need to leverage and look for support from other organisations that specialise in the space, and this is what we do. And all our products and services and solutions that we offer to industry is based on our proven work health and safety operating model. And the image that you see there on the screen and the elements that it represents basically suggests that if you balance those elements out, you will achieve a reasonably high degree of sustainability in your work health and safety approach. Those elements are all intrinsically linked, which means that the success of one determines the success of the other, and they can't really exist without each other. So, for example, if you looked at the bottom black bar there, which talks about management standards, you can develop policies and procedures and work instructions, but if you don't set the expectation or you don't communicate it, or you share that information with your leadership team or your workforce, it doesn't matter how much time and effort you put into your policy and procedures. They won't be adopted, therefore you won't achieve implementation, therefore it won't add value to your organisation. So based on that model, just move on to the next slide, thanks, Matt. We have obviously quite a few different solutions available to industry, and please take some time to visit our website and have a look at the things that we provide. But I just wanted to touch on these three key programs today, just in terms of sort of getting the basics right and looking towards the future and trying to mitigate the challenges and the risks associated with workplace injuries and keeping those costs around workers' compensation as low as possible. So we normally provide the starting point for most of our engagements is doing a review of an organisation, because we pride ourselves in developing programs that are bespoke to an organisation's needs and requirements. So for the larger businesses, we do a very comprehensive program called Protect and Care. And that's basically what we do is we come in, we do a review, we look at your performance information, we look at it through the workers' compensation costs, and we look at it through the operator lens. So what are the true impacts of those costs on your business? We look at how you performing from a standards or practice perspective against our operating elements. That helps us understand where you're at that given time. We also run a safety culture survey. As you can imagine, the culture of your organisation is absolutely essential to people making the right choice and meeting expectation around working safely. So we run an analysis there to understand how people perceive safety in your business, and that incorporates back into the overall report to understand what the look and feel is on the ground. We also spend some time at your premises. We do some physical workplace inspections to see what it looks like in practice and what you have or don't have in terms of what our expectations are in that regard. And then from there, we actually pull that information together and we prepare a very comprehensive report. We workshop that report and the outcomes with your management team or your leadership team and help you identify your roadmap or your pathway forward in terms of improvements. For the smaller to medium-sized organisations, obviously a big program like that is very intensive, and there's a lot of elements in there that might not be reasonably practical to cover off for small businesses. So we've actually created an online self-service version, which is also complimentary. And you can go on there, do your own assessment. We then provide you with a report and a 30-minute debrief, and we help you also sort of set out what your strategy may look like going forward. Now, for the big programs and those larger organisations, we do have some funding available. It is limited, but we are in a position for those businesses that meet the criteria for the program. We are able to offer that service complimentary as well. So when we get to the end of the session, our contact information will be on the screen. If you're interested in that, really helps you get a good look under the hood and just from an external perspective, and can help you identify the way forward. So generally leveraging or leapfrogging from that position there, from an ongoing care perspective, we use that service as our consulting service, and we normally take the information and the learning from those reviews to build a program that will suit your business needs and help you set up for sustainable success into the future. So that includes not only providing you with the necessary management standards and policies and procedures to create the guidance, but also helping you establish a sound safety brand for your business, as well as setting up some governance arrangements where we help support you in terms of executing duty of care around whether you're achieving the right results and providing the safest possible workplace for your team members. And then on the right-hand side, care and recover. that is essentially our outsourced end-to-end return to work coordination service. Reflecting back on what we covered off earlier in terms of performance, the best results from an injury generally are determined by how early you get involved in that injured worker's experience. From time to time, we do get the support of rehab service providers due to certain factors associated with that claim. However, that normally only happens several weeks into a claim. And by that stage, that claim could already be getting out of control and the person isn't well supported. So essentially our service there is it's a retained service. And basically, the minute you have an injury, you pick up the phone, you ring us, and we manage the injury for you. We put ourselves at the center of the injury and claims management ecosystem, and we coordinate all the activities between the different stakeholders, including the injured worker, the employer, icare, and their insurance or their claim service providers, nominated treating doctors, and other allied health providers to try and deliver the best possible outcome for the injured worker and your business. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what it is. So the key message I'd like to leave you with as we move to the last slide and take some questions, that is, if you can do more to prevent injuries, that's the best outcome for your team members. It creates a great culture, drives productivity, and it's good for your business. But we also recognise that not all injuries can be avoided. So the next best thing is make sure that you set up to manage that injury and support that worker as best as possible when an injury does occur. So thank you. If anybody else has anything to add, Michelle, Stavros?
No.
So let's. I'll just jump over and see if any questions. We've got a couple here. The first one here is actually from Jim. You might want to answer this one, Michelle. Jim has asked whether this information can be made available to them because he'd like to share some of the statistics internally to support his management team.
Yep, no problems. We can certainly share that information post presentation. Yep.
Thank you. And I've got a question here from Sarah. Sarah's asked, what constitutes an injury? How small? A small scratch, how does this affect our policy? I'll probably hand this over to Michelle in terms of a claim and a policy perspective. However, just in terms of safety practices, it's really, really important internally to report any injury, regardless of how significant or severe it is, because that insignificant injury could be quite a significant injury if the circumstances or the causes surrounding that aren't addressed. However, from a compensation perspective, the legislation is pretty broad, and it talks about notifying the insurer or icare if an injury may or will be compensable. Now, on the surface, scratch to finger is highly unlikely to be compensable, but if that person doesn't get the right treatment or they don't get the right first aid or the wound is cared for, that could quite easily turn into becoming an infection and sepsis, and there are potential risks associated with it, even with the smallest type of injury. From a claims perspective, Michelle might be able to give something.
Yeah, so I think the question there was, how does it impact our policy? So look, if you have an incident only and it's just a simple scratch, as you sort of alluded to there, then it would have no impact per se on your policy. It would sit there as an incident. It's only if it ended up becoming escalating and becoming a claim in terms of having medical treatment and so forth that it would start impacting from a policy perspective. But just noting there that if the claim is reported outside of 5 days and you think it's insignificant and you're aware of that, then you would get that claims excess charge. So again, if a worker is earning $1,500 a week in wages, you would get charged that $1,500 a week upfront, I guess, as a fine for not reporting it within 5 days. So it's best to report it within that 5-day period. Because data also shows us that if you do report it in that 5-day period, then the overall cost of the claim will be much, much lower than what it would be if you waited.
Thanks, Michelle. That's great. So we've got another one pop up here from Olivia. The question is, do you have a best practice for a company for pre-existing injury? In other words, before work commenced or outside the work sphere? Olivia, yes. We have developed a template or a draft fitness for work approach for the industry. It is really, really essential. I'll just go back to what I mentioned earlier, and that was about the musculoskeletal and injuries, and the fact that manual handling and those type of physical activities are inherent in what we do mostly in the automotive industry. So over time, as people age, their musculoskeletal system degenerates, and those injuries become frequent. So being fit for work and being able to perform the inherent requirements, the physical inherent requirements of the job become more and more important over time. And as people move from one business to another, they're going to bring some of those issues with them. So we do encourage businesses to consider what their pre-employment processes look like, and get some understanding of any capacity or capability issues that an individual might have, which would put them at an unacceptable risk of injury should you employ them to perform inherent requirements of the role, which they physically cannot do. So from a policy and a procedural perspective, there is material available in that regard that will give you a lot of guidance as to what that may look like for you. So please, and this is for everybody, you'll see on the screen there's a QR code. That's just a quick way to scan and complete our inquiries form. So Olivia, if you want to just reach out to us, and I'll get one of our professionals to contact you just to talk to you through how to access that information, and possibly look at what your holistic approach may be, because that will only be one facet of a good sustainable approach to work on the safety management. All right. I haven't had any other questions come through. I might just
ask a question maybe.
Yes. Anybody? Just that little blue button at the bottom of your screen. There we go. We've got a question from David. It's not a question. He's just thanked us for taking the time to organise it and sharing helpful information. Thanks, David.
Someone can actually ask the question instead of just typing, correct? Yes.
Yeah, if somebody wants to verbally ask a question, I think if you just want to use your little hands up icon and I think that's great. Well, in any closeout from anybody, please feel free to jump in.
Oh, good. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out. As Trevor mentioned, I know that you're all busy with your day-to-day jobs, so it's great to have you all online and aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to say thank you also to everyone for participating. We are your association. We are your go-to people for anything related to the automotive industry. So please reach out to us. I'd like to acknowledge and thank icare for their contribution, participation, and Michelle for your contribution today. We've been working with icare for the last 6 years, developing this. There is no other industry at the moment working with icare. This is a first, and we've been working as a pilot and developing it. So good things have come from this. So we are the subject matter experts. Please reach out to us if you need any assistance. We do have a duty of care. We do have responsibilities in our businesses. So there are ways of mitigating risk and educating our staff on how to be cautious in the workplace. So do please reach out to us at any given time. We're here to support you. That's our job. Okay. So again, thank you everyone for your participation. We'll share the information with you post this meeting. And if anyone does have any questions, please reach out to us and we'll get in touch with you. All right. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you, Stavros, and thanks everyone for joining, and enjoy the rest of the week and stay safe.
Yes. Well done.